In front of the fancy French restaurant, I inhaled deeply. My in-laws, George and Barbara Johnson, gladly hosted a delightful Christmas celebration tonight, which was characterized with a name on the door. I hope to have a significant relationship with Barbara this year, and I whispered to myself, treat it with confidence. I walked into the restaurant's opulent interior. A maître d' called Peter, who stood in for the establishment's friendly face, graciously welcomed me as soon as I walked in. "I'm Jessica Hansen, accompanying the Johnson family reservation," I said Peter with assurance. Peter's face became puzzled as he looked over the reservation list. "I'm terribly sorry, but I'm unable to locate your name under the Johnson reservation." "That's very odd. My in-laws and I were specifically supposed to be here tonight." "Oh, Jessie," turning around, I was met with the sight of Barbara Johnson standing there, her face etched with a cold, unwelcoming smile. "I didn't actually think you would come. Didn't you read the memo I sent? It said this party was for family only. Anyone else is supposed to dine at the diner next door." Feeling my cheeks flush with heat, Barbara's intentions became crystal clear to me. Such a memo had never been sent. It was a fabrication. Her actions were a deliberate attempt to exclude and embarrass me in front of everyone. "Mom." I heard Wesley's voice. He stood between Barbara and Peter. "Jessica is definitely coming in. She's my wife." "Wesley, you seem not to understand, but this is an upscale restaurant. It's not suitable for someone with a background like Jessica's." "What are you saying, Mom? Jessica is my wife. She's family. People like Jessica should dine across the street at the diner, and then she can meet you later at the hotel." I was at a loss for words. Ever since our wedding 3 years ago, Barbara had consistently treated me with coldness and, at times, outright hostility. She mocked my job as a public high school English teacher at coffee parties, excluded me from family photos, forgot to give me gifts, and now this. "Barbara," I said, my voice shaking but filled with resolve, "is it really that hard to accept that I'm part of this family?" "Family? Oh, you're just married to Wesley. That doesn't make you our family member." "Oh, what's going on here?" A new voice made me turn around. A petite, middle-aged woman stood there, elegantly dressed with strands of grey in her deep brown hair and a sharp intelligence in her eyes. Peter's demeanor immediately changed as he recognized her, exclaiming, "Michelle, is there an issue here?" Michelle inquired calmly, "This woman is attempting to intrude on our family party," Barbara stated hotly. "And who might you be?" Michelle questioned. "I'm Barbara Johnson, Wesley's mother." "And who is this lady?" Michelle pointed at me. "I'm Jessica Hansen, Wesley's wife." "Jessica, I've been eagerly awaiting your arrival." "Huh." Barbara's confusion was evident. "Who are you?" "I own this restaurant," Michelle replied. And to say that Jessica is merely an acquaintance would be an understatement. She's practically our co-founder. Barbara's face lost all color as she processed the information. "Owner? Co-founder?" "Yes. Jessica is my relative. Her parents helped launch our restaurant. But Jessica herself has been a part of the soul of this place. She has been deeply involved in the launch of this restaurant since her college days." Barbara was visibly shaken, her mouth opening and closing as if to speak, but no words emerged. Michelle turned to Peter. "Is there a reason Mrs. Hansen's seat isn't ready? When Mr. Johnson made the reservation, he said it was family only." "I see. Well, please prepare a seat for Jessica immediately at the best table." "But this is supposed to be a family-only event, Mrs. Johnson," Michelle said politely yet authoritatively. "Are you saying Jessica isn't family? She's your son's wife, isn't she?" Barbara grudgingly admitted me as we entered the main dining room. Wesley's sister, Alexandra Owen, and her husband, Ethan, were seated at the table along with George, my father-in-law. Alexandra was in her mid-30s, sporting a perfect blonde hairstyle and a designer brand dress, almost a younger version of her mother. "Hey, everyone," Wesley greeted cheerfully. There was a slight mix-up regarding whether Jessica had been included on the guest list, but we have clarified everything now, Wesley announced. George appeared momentarily confused but quickly recovered, standing to warmly grasp Jessica's hand. "Jessica, I'm glad you came. I hope we have a wonderful night." George was always kind, in stark contrast to his wife. He consistently welcomed me and showed genuine interest in my life. His demeanor often made him feel more like an actual father to me rather than merely a father-in-law. During dinner, Barbara began talking about the family's upcoming 50th anniversary gala dinner. It will be in the ballroom at the Four Seasons Hotel. We're inviting 350 guests. "That truly sounds fantastic," Wesley responded, his voice filled with anticipation. "Jessica and I are particularly excited about it," he added. Barbara slightly pursed her lips and turned her gaze towards me. "Yes, of course, you're invited too, Jessica. You are Wesley's partner, after all." I was thinking of ways to join the conversation. "If there's any way I can assist with the event, please don't hesitate to let me know. I have quite a bit of experience in event planning," I offered, hoping to contribute. Barbara nearly ignored me. "Of course, I will be heavily involved in planning everything with me. She really has a wonderful flair for these kinds of things," Barbara noted dismissively. "Actually, Jessica is quite knowledgeable about event planning," Wesley quickly chimed in, supporting me. "She helped launch this restaurant and organizes events at her school. And now she's the one supporting our life." "What do you mean?" Alexandra interjected, a note of surprise in her voice. "Jessica covers most of our living expenses. She's using her teacher's salary and a small trust fund from her father to cover everything from our apartment rent to loans and living expenses. Actually, my company received investment last year because Jessica provided the initial funds," Wesley explained. Barbara's complexion turned noticeably pale. "She's the one supporting your entire lifestyle?" Barbara asked, a mix of disbelief and shock in her voice. "Yes, Mom," Wesley said confidently. "You've always looked down on Jessica. You said she wasn't good enough for me, that she didn't fit into our circle. But in reality, Jessica is the foundation of our life. I can pursue my dreams because of her support." I grasped my husband's hand firmly. This was the first occasion he had openly acknowledged my contributions to his family in such a public setting. But, Alexandra stuttered, trying to formulate a response. "She's just a public school teacher, right? How can she?" "I'm not just a teacher," I said quietly yet firmly. "I'm proud of my job, and the salary isn't as bad as you might think, especially with 10 years of experience." As we were enjoying our dessert, Michelle approached our table. "Jessica, I've prepared a special dessert for you. Do you remember your mother's recipe?" My eyes immediately lit up. "Lemon meringue pie. Yes, the chef made it especially for you." "You shared my mother's recipe with the chef?" Wesley asked, a hint of astonishment in his voice. "Yes, some time ago, when I last visited here with my mother. Michelle adored her lemon pie and requested if she could share the recipe with the chef," I explained. "Jessica's mother makes amazing pies," Michelle said. "Her recipe has become a special part of our menu." "What exactly did Jessica do?" Wesley asked, intrigued. "She's far too modest. When she was a college student, she designed our new brand identity. The old one was outdated and didn't attract customers. Jessica's design was young and fresh, and it completely transformed our reputation." "It wasn't that big of a deal," I said, blushing slightly at the praise. "On the contrary," Michelle continued, "she convinced the chef to refresh the menu. Thanks to that, we earned our first Michelin star." The table fell silent momentarily. Barbara's expression was hard to read, but a flicker of something passed through her eyes. "Why didn't you tell us?" "That's incredible," Wesley asked me. "It never seemed like the right moment to bring it up." "But why are you still teaching? Couldn't you have pursued a career with more ambition?" George inquired, genuinely curious. "I chose to be a teacher because it has always been my passion. While marketing was indeed stimulating, it simply cannot compare to the fulfillment I gain from spending time with children and aiding in their success throughout life," I explained sincerely. "That is truly commendable. Investing in the futures of young people is an invaluable endeavor," George acknowledged, nodding in agreement. Barbara slowly raised her head. Jessica, I didn't know about your career. You should talk about it more. Perhaps Jessica thought you wouldn't be interested, Wesley said, his tone slightly ironic. As the conversation unfolded, it took a turn toward more personal topics, and the previously tense atmosphere began to relax gradually. Rather than the usual discussions about family business dynamics and the intricate web of social circles they navigated, the dialogue shifted towards more intimate and personal subjects. For the first time in what felt like ages, I experienced a sense of relief and could breathe more freely, feeling less on guard. Jessica, where do your parents live? George asked gently. My father passed away a few years ago, and my mother moved to Florida. She always wanted to live near the ocean. Oh, I see. I'm truly sorry to hear that. It's okay, really. He was a wonderful person. I have many wonderful memories of him. Wasn't your father a lawyer? Where was his office? Wesley asked. He had his office on Wall Street, specializing predominantly in corporate law, I explained. Barbara's eyebrows lifted in surprise. Wall Street, you say? Which firm was it? Hansen, Anderson and Associates. Thomas Hansen was your father, the well-known corporate lawyer. Barbara's voice carried a tone of disbelief. Yes, he was incredibly humble and made it a point not to bring his work home. As a result, my mother and I seldom discussed his professional successes. Indeed, when we started dating, Jessica never mentioned her father. I later found out he had several dealings with executives at my company. I always wanted to be valued for my own achievements, not for my father's name, Barbara commented. I might have attended the same charity events as your father. He was always very sophisticated. Yes, that sounds like him. Despite his commitments to the social scene, he was deeply committed to helping those in genuine need, I confirmed, remembering my father's principles. Wesley, looking surprised, remarked, You rarely speak about your father. After he suddenly passed away from a heart attack at 58, it became difficult to speak about him. He was always so focused on his work that he neglected his health. That must have been incredibly tough, George empathized, his tone full of compassion. It was very tough, especially for my mother. They were college sweethearts. After his death, I realized how short life can be and started thinking about what's really important. I've always been passionate about education and liked working with children. Marketing was exciting, but it didn't fulfill my soul. Was your father also the founder of the Hansen Foundation? Yes, it was one of his life's works. It's aimed at providing educational opportunities for underprivileged children. Barbara picked up her wine glass, her demeanor a mix of contemplation and slight unease. However, despite the personal revelations and the somewhat warmer conversation, I never truly saw genuine warmth in Barbara's eyes toward me. Similarly, Alexandra had not fundamentally changed her attitude toward me either. They had simply altered their behavior upon learning that my father was the renowned lawyer Thomas Hansen. In the car on the way home, Wesley held my hand reassuringly. I think tonight went rather well. It seems like my mother is finally beginning to accept you. I looked out the window as I responded. What she's beginning to accept isn't really me. It's the prestige associated with my father's status. That's not true. Tonight, you showed your accomplishments at the restaurant, how you've been supporting our finances and your passion and talent. But her attitude changed only after hearing my father's name. Wesley sighed deeply. My mother just needs more time. She's just bound by old-fashioned views. I looked at my husband. I was grateful that he had stood by me so strongly. I'm really glad you were on my side tonight. Wesley smiled warmly. Of course, you're my wife. And honestly, you're the one making our current life possible. You've always supported my startup. Over the following months, I maintained a polite distance from the Johnson family for Wesley's sake. Though our relationship seemed to improve superficially, I could still sense the disdain hidden in Barbara and Alexandra's eyes. What I inherited from my father was not just his social standing. Just before his passing, he had handed me a box filled with old documents. For when you need it, he had advised. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. It turned out to be research materials for a major case my father had been working on involving a corporate group. The documents included records on how several companies avoided taxes and laundered money. Notably, there were detailed documents regarding St. Ing, the Johnson family's business, and its related charitable organizations. For a while, I struggled with what to do with this information. The decision became clear as plans for the Johnson family's 50th anniversary began to take shape. Barbara and Alexandra included me outwardly, but in reality, all my ideas were ignored, and decisions were only communicated to me afterwards. After a meeting, I accidentally overheard a conversation between Alexandra and Barbara. "I wish Jessica would just give up and leave," Alexandra said. "She doesn't fit into our circle." "Be patient. Wesley is still smitten with her, but time will solve this. We're gradually nudging him to choose us over her outdated family." I was hurt by their words, but I made a decision the time had come for the truth to be revealed. I took my father's documents and went to confront Barbara and Alexandra directly at the Johnson estate. "What do you want?" Barbara asked coldly. Alexandra sat next to her mother, looking at me with contempt. "I know what you've been doing: money laundering through charities, tax evasion, all of it." Barbara laughed. "How did you manage to get such evidence? You can't do anything. Besides, Wesley wouldn't believe it. He will choose his family over you." "He won't choose the kind of family you're talking about. I'm giving you a chance to turn yourselves in." "Get out!" Alexander shouted. "You can't do anything to us. We have power, connections. You're just a school teacher." As I was leaving, I heard Barbara's last words. "Let's crush her. I'll make Wesley divorce her." That night, I told Wesley everything: my father's documents, the evidence of fraud I had discovered, and the threats from Barbara and Alexandra. At first, Wesley couldn't believe it. "Mom." "Alexandra. No, that can't be." "Look at this evidence." I handed him the documents. "I don't think your father is involved, at least not actively." Wesley spent hours going through the documents. His face gradually turned pale. "This is real," he finally acknowledged. "What do you plan to do?" I gave them a choice, but they didn't listen. "Now I want to know what you will do. Will we do the right thing?" "Of course, we'll do the right thing. But this will destroy the family." "They never saw me as family from the start," I said quietly. "Your mom said today that she would crush me." Wesley hugged me. "I will protect you no matter what. You are my only real family." 6 months later, Wesley and I were watching the news in our living room. The screen showed a breaking news alert about the Johnson family. "Breaking news: businessman George Johnson's wife, Barbara Johnson, has been arrested by the FBI on charges of tax evasion and fraud involving millions of dollars. Mrs. Johnson is suspected of illegally diverting funds through a charity organization. Her daughter, Alexandra Owen, has also been arrested as an accomplice." Despite knowing this could happen, Wesley stared blankly at the TV. Soon, the Johnson family's reputation was shattered. George's company stock prices plummeted, and social media was overflowing with posts about Barbara's past behavior. As the queen of the social scene, she always looked down on others. Barbara kicked my son out of a charity event because he wasn't wearing appropriate clothes. Alexandra always thought she was better than everyone else since school. I looked out the window, tasting the bitter victory. I hadn't wanted this outcome. I just wanted to be accepted as a family member. Alexandra's husband, Ethan, had filed for divorce and decided to take custody of their children. He had cooperated fully with the investigation and was granted immunity. George wasn't arrested but was removed from the board of directors and was under house arrest. Whether he truly didn't know about his wife and daughter's crimes or had simply turned a blind eye was unknown to anyone. On the day of the trial, I sat next to Wesley. He held my hand firmly. Barbara and Alexandra sat in the dock, their former glory nowhere in sight. Instead of designer brand dresses, they wore simple clothes. Barbara's face was stern, her eyes fixed on me. The verdict was delivered. Barbara received an 8-year prison sentence, and Alexandra received a 5-year prison sentence. Additionally, they were ordered to return the stolen funds. As we walked down the courthouse steps, Wesley looked at me resolutely. "I've decided I'm done with my family. I can't forgive what Mom and Alexandra did and what they have done to you," he said firmly. "Wesley, they are your family." "No, you are my family. The only true family I have. When they rejected you, they rejected me as well." As we left the courthouse, Wesley asked me, "Do you have any regrets?" I took a deep breath. I gave them a chance to turn themselves in and make amends, honestly. But they chose arrogance. They threatened me and tried to destroy our marriage. "What about my father?" "I gave your father a chance to hear the truth. He claimed he didn't know everything. I want to believe that." I remembered my last conversation with George. He looked exhausted, expressing shame and regret over his wife and daughter's actions. I couldn't stop them. "And when you tried to become part of our family, I didn't protect you enough. I have divorced Barbara and I do not intend to accept her back after she's released." A year later, my husband and I were leading a new life. Wesley's company was on track and performing well. I continued working as a teacher. We sometimes visited George. He lived in a small apartment and led a quiet life. He was always warm to me, but now that warmth included genuine respect. One day, while checking the mail, I found a letter from Barbara. "Jessica, I have made many mistakes. Rejecting you and failing to recognize your worth was one of my greatest errors. My time in prison has given me much to think about. I cannot justify my actions. I deeply regret not trying to understand you. I was blind to the love and support you provided to my son due to my prejudiced views. I do not seek forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it. I only hope that you and Wesley are happy. Barbara." I threw the letter away and did not respond. My relationship with my in-laws was irreparably broken. Wesley's phone rang. It was his father. After talking for a while, he hung up. Mom was supposed to live with Alexandra after being released, but it seems their relationship is also broken. "Alexandra is blaming everything on Mom," Wesley said quietly. "That's sad," I honestly replied. "Dad said that Mom is finally starting to take responsibility for what she did." Wesley looked out the window. "But I won't change my decision to protect our new family." A few weeks later, a similar letter arrived from Alexandra. I did not respond to that one either. Words could not heal the wounds that remained. I was focused on building a new family with Wesley, a family based on love and respect. Healing from past wounds would take time, but we chose to move forward. Our new house had no family pictures from either side. Rather, they featured pictures of the two of us and the experiences we made. With his arm wrapped around my shoulder, Wesley stood next to me. His words, "A new beginning." "Yes, the start of our real family," I answered. Together we observed the rain. The most difficult decisions in life are sometimes the most important ones. After being put to the test, our relationship had become stronger, and we were now starting to write our own tale, free from the biases and expectations of others. My name is 27-year-old Candace Watson. As Tyler and Associates' youngest marketing director, I was making good professional development. I stopped on my way back to my 7th-floor office to gaze out the window at the busy New York skyline below. Rows of buildings towered under a cloud-heavy sky, and people walked quickly down the streets like a swarm of ants. I inhaled deeply and gave myself permission to savor my career accomplishments for a time. But in the back of my mind, there was always a feeling that something was lacking. My family had a problem with it. I was brought up to live up to my family's standards from an early age. As the Watson family's eldest daughter, I was born. Together with our parents and my younger sister Brittany, who is 3 years younger, we made up a family of 4. Richard and Diane, both of our parents, were devoted to their work and frequently away. Each of them has a known personality. Diane, my mother, was always in charge of the house and was aggressive and determined. Richard, my father, on the other hand, was calm, polite, and rarely got involved in family matters. He frequently did as my mother said. As a result, my mother set the rules at home, and it became natural for me to follow them. Replacing my busy parents, I was expected to take care of Brittany as the big sister. It started with simple tasks. When we came home from school, I prepared snacks and helped Brittany with her homework. As I grew older, my duties increasingly accumulated. By late elementary school, I was responsible for cooking dinner 3 times a week, supervising Brittany's homework, and cleaning on Saturday mornings. While my peers went out on weekends, I was swamped with household chores. Once, I was set to present at a school science fair. I asked my father to help on the weekend. "Dad, can you help me with my project on Saturday?" I asked. He smiled and nodded. "Of course." However, on Saturday morning, my mother told him, "Richard, today is Brittany's ballet practice day. You need to take her." "But Dad promised to help with my project," I protested. "Sorry, Candace," my father said apologetically. "I'll definitely help next time." My mother added, "Candace, you're smart enough to do it alone. Brittany is still young and needs Dad's help." Thus, I always learned to put my wishes and needs last. My father never protected me. He always followed my mother's decisions. One spring day when I was 16 years old, I had planned to go to the mall with friends. It was a rare moment for myself. However, on the morning of the outing, my mother had urgent business and asked me to help prepare for Brittany's 13th birthday party. "Candace, please, it's for Brittany," my mother said. "You can always go out another time." I reluctantly agreed. Brittany's party was a great success, and our parents were pleased. However, I never went out with my friends after that. After the cancellation that day, it became known that Candace is too busy. These experiences made it difficult for me to say no to my family's demands. My family's needs always took priority over my own wishes and plans. When I entered university, I finally gained some freedom. I moved away from my parents' home and began living my own life. However, the bond with my family was strong, and I kept in touch regularly through calls and messages. Even after starting my job, I was expected to take vacations for weekly visits home and family birthdays and events. Even now, I still feel a strong sense of duty to meet my family's demands. After finishing a meeting and returning to my office, my smartphone rang. The screen read "Mom." Hesitating for a moment, I answered the call. "Candace, how are you?" "Yes, Mom. I just got back from a meeting." "What's up?" "Actually, I have a small favor to ask," my mother said. "Next month, I'm going with Brittany to train for volunteer nursing. It's from March 15th for about 10 days, I replied while sitting at my desk. "Oh, that's wonderful. Where?" I think it's in Miami," she stumbled in her response. I felt a slight discomfort. My mother usually planned everything down to the last detail. It was unlike her to be vague about a location. "It would have been nice for you to join, but you're always busy. Besides, I actually have another favor to ask." My heart skipped a beat. I was well acquainted with this tone of favor. "Could you take care of Rocky and Daisy? Dad is on a business trip, and we need someone to look after them while we are away." Rocky and Daisy are the family's miniature dachshunds. I have always loved dogs, but pets are not allowed in my apartment. I gradually built a bond with the two during weekend visits home. Rocky and Daisy came to the family after I had moved on to college. Since childhood, I had wanted a dog, but that wish was never fulfilled while I was living at home. However, when Brittany suddenly expressed a desire to have dogs, my mother brought them home. "Mom, I have a schedule. I have a presentation in Chicago just before that," I said. This business trip was crucial for me. It was a presentation of our annual marketing strategy to our largest client, and if successful, it would be a significant step forward in my career. My mother quickly countered, "But you'll be coming back, right? It's only for a few days. The dogs love you." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. It was the usual pattern. My family always expected me to say yes. "Mom, I'm sorry. I can't help this time." "But Candace, I'm not a pet sitter." My voice grew a bit stronger. "I have my own life." The ensuing silence spoke volumes of my mother's shock. "All right then," she eventually said. "I'll look into a pet hotel." As the responsible eldest daughter in the family, I had always been relied upon. However, lately, I have begun to feel tired of this role. Normally, I might have accepted even my mother's unreasonable demands. But this time, particularly due to the demanding project, I planned to take a vacation and rest alone after returning from Chicago. At the same time, the conversation with my mother felt strangely off. There was something unsettling about it. A few days later, at a coffee shop, I ran into Brittany's close friend Lindsay. She called out from behind me as I was ordering coffee. "Candace!" "Lindsay, it's been a while. How are you?" I greeted her cheerfully. "Yes, very well. You seem as busy as ever," she said with a smile. "Right. Brittany and I were shopping all last week for her trip to Japan." "Trip to Japan?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, next month, right? I think it starts on March 15th. Are you going too?" Lindsay inquired. "Brittany is really excited. She'll be visiting Kyoto and Tokyo." "I'm so jealous." I smiled, hiding my confusion. "Oh, that's right. I'm still considering it." While continuing the conversation, my mind was in turmoil. My mother and Brittany had planned a trip to Japan but hadn't told me anything. Instead, they lied about volunteer training to get me to take care of the dogs. After parting with Lindsay, I decided to email Vanessa, a friend of my mother's and a leader of the volunteer organization. If my mother was participating in training, Vanessa would know about it. "Hello, Vanessa. This is Candace. I heard my mother is participating in volunteer training. Could you give me more details?" A few hours later, Vanessa replied, "Candace, which training is your mother talking about? Our organization doesn't have any events planned for next month." This response confirmed my suspicions. My mother and Brittany had lied. It wasn't volunteer training. It was a trip to Japan. And I hadn't been invited. Why did they lie? I murmured quietly. A mix of anger and sadness surged within me. A few days after discovering the Japan trip, I called my mother. "Mom, I talked to Lindsay and Vanessa," I said quietly. "You're going to Japan, aren't you? There's no volunteer training." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. "Candace," she hesitated, "we didn't mean to trouble you. You always seemed so busy. We thought you'd say no if we invited you." "Then you should have been honest from the start," I said. "Why did you lie?" "We wanted you to take care of the dogs," she admitted. I took a deep breath. "Mom, I have my own plans. I'm not going to sacrifice my work and plans for your trip." She sighed. "I understand. After you turned us down, I thought about it. We've decided to put Rocky and Daisy in a pet hotel." After a moment of silence, my mother seemed to have an idea. "So, we're putting Rocky and Daisy in a pet hotel. How about we all go on a trip together? You said you wanted to visit Japan, right?" I was surprised for a moment, but then quickly responded, "That's a great idea. Let's do that." She replied with a voice of relief, "I'll send you the travel details right away." I was satisfied with this solution. I thought it was worth taking a vacation for this family trip. At the same time, I was busy preparing for a presentation in Chicago. But in between, I was also preparing for the trip to Japan. I bought guidebooks and started learning basic Japanese phrases. It was one of the countries I had long admired, and I was very excited. I also hoped that spending time with my family might improve our relationship. The presentation in Chicago was a resounding success. The client was satisfied with my proposal and even approved an additional budget. My boss praised me, saying, "Great job," and I prepared for the trip in high spirits. Then came the morning of March 15th. I arrived at JFK International Airport. A few days earlier, I had returned to New York from a flight from Chicago, but I was not feeling tired. I was looking forward to this trip. As I entered the airport entrance that morning, my mother and Brittany had already arrived. They were sitting on a bench with large suitcases beside them. I approached them. "Good morning," I said brightly. My mother and Brittany showed complex expressions but quickly changed to smiles. I felt a moment of discomfort at their expressions, but I did not dwell on it. "Candace, it's been a while." Brittany stood up and hugged me. "I'm looking forward to the trip." I smiled. "By the way, where's Dad?" My mother's expression clouded slightly. About that, she stood up and took 2 small carry cases from a large bag on the bench. Inside each was Rocky and Daisy, looking anxious and quietly sitting in their cases. "What are you doing?" I asked incredulously. "Candace, understand," my mother said in a low voice. "We searched all the pet hotels, but they were fully booked. Your dad is on a business trip, and it's impossible for us to take the dogs with us. Someone has to take care of them. Dad is on a business trip. So, the plan wasn't for all of us to go." My voice grew colder. "So the plan was for the 2 of you to go to Japan while Dad is away and I stay home to watch the dogs?" "I thought you'd understand." My mother became defensive. "I told you I refused to take care of the dogs. I'm not a pet sitter," I said. But Brittany started to speak, and I interrupted her. "No, this is unacceptable," I said firmly. "You're trying to manipulate me. You're counting on me saying yes, as usual." "Candace, calm down," my mother said, looking around. "Don't create a scene here. It's not good to get emotional." "Not get emotional?" My voice rose a bit. "You're telling me not to get emotional when you've lied to me and are trying to force 2 dogs on me without my consent." I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. My mother, Brittany, and the animal carry cases. "What are you doing?" my mother asked, confused. "I'm gathering evidence," I said calmly. "I'm going to report this to the animal control authorities." My mother's face was drained of all colors. "What? You're trying to abandon the dogs?" I explained. "And I won't allow that." "Candace, please," my mother said, her face on the verge of tears. "We were just trying to use me," I finished her sentence. "I've had enough." I started to make a phone call. "Hello, is this the animal control? I'd like to report some pets being abandoned." My mother froze in terror. Brittany began to cry. "Candace, stop." At that moment, a man hurried toward us through the crowd. "Dad, what's going on here?" he asked, confused. I was surprised and hung up the phone. "Dad, weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?" "Yes, that was the plan," he answered. "But I managed to finish my work early. I wanted to surprise you all by not telling you." "But why are you all at the airport?" He looked around slowly. He saw the dogs in the carry cases and said, "Diane, what's happening?" Then the truth came out. Dad didn't know about the trip to Japan. The plan had been for the 2 of them to leave while he was supposedly on a business trip. Mom and Brittany had never intended to take me on the trip. They were trying to trick me into taking care of the dogs. In fact, the pet hotel wasn't full. They were denied because Rocky was old and might feel stressed in a new environment. What was more shocking was the fact that Dad was completely unaware of the plan. "Diane," his voice was filled with disappointment. "What are you doing?" She started to make an excuse, but an airport announcement interrupted her. "Boarding call for Japan Airlines Flight 3. "Forget it," Dad told them. "I'll take the dogs home." But Mom tried to argue. "There's no time to discuss this now," Dad said firmly. "We'll talk about this later." I looked at him. His eyes were mixed with anger and disappointment. He must have felt betrayed just like me. "Go," I told my mother and Brittany. "Enjoy yourselves, but understand that this changes our relationship." They seemed lost for words. Ultimately, they silently walked toward the check-in line. In those few minutes, my world shifted. I felt like I had expressed my true feelings towards my family for the first time. I had always tried to meet my family's expectations, but that day I had clearly defined my boundaries. Dad approached me. "I'm sorry, Candace. I didn't know." "I know, Dad," I said quietly. "You were deceived by them too." The sadness and confusion in my father's face stirred my heart. My dad, who had always followed family decisions, seemed to take a stand for the first time today. He picked up the dog's carry cases. "Let's go home. We need to talk." I shook my head. "I'm not going home." "What do you mean?" The words "not going home" had slipped out impulsively. At that moment, something became clear in my mind. I had always lived to meet others' expectations. Although I was successful at work, it was not for myself, but to be recognized within the family. As the responsible big sister, I had always prioritized my family's needs over my own desires. But now, amid the bustle of the airport, I was listening to my own voice. A long-suppressed desire suddenly became clear. I needed to use this moment for myself. I've always changed my plans for the sake of the family, I explained. This time is different. I'm taking my own vacation. Where do you plan to go? My father asked, concern evident in his voice. I paused for a moment. The destination of my childhood dreams came to mind. The blue seas, white sandy beaches, and breathtaking sunsets I had seen in magazines. Hawaii. Yes, Hawaii, I smiled. I've always wanted to go there. The moment I voiced it, I felt completely certain about my decision. Hawaii wasn't just an escape. It was a place I had long dreamed of visiting. As a child, I learned about Hawaii in geography class, captivated by its beautiful landscapes and culture. However, family trips were always tailored to Brittany's preferences, and my wishes were postponed. But not this time. This time it was my turn to choose. He seemed momentarily puzzled, but he quickly understood. I see. Go for it. You deserve a vacation. He pulled out a card from his wallet. Use this, he said, handing me a credit card. Upgrade to first class using my points. You deserve special treatment. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you, Dad. No, I should be the one thanking you, he said earnestly. We have not adequately expressed our gratitude for everything you have done for the family, and we have taken you for granted. I'm truly sorry. I hugged my father. It's okay, Dad. You didn't know. Don't worry about the dogs, he assured me. Go and enjoy your time. I nodded and started walking towards another terminal. The Hawaiian sun was warm, gently illuminating my skin. Lying on the sandy Wiki beach, I breathed deeply, listening to the waves. This is what freedom feels like, I whispered to myself. Thanks to my father's points, I secured a first-class seat on a direct flight to Honolulu. Furthermore, I was staying in a fabulous suite in a 5-star hotel. This trip meant more than just a vacation. It was a turning point in my life. The confrontation with my family, especially the incident at the airport, had given me the courage to face long-standing issues. I pulled out a small notebook from my beach bag and began to write. Diary entry, March 17th. Today is my second day in Hawaii. An incredibly beautiful place. Yesterday, I hiked up Diamond Head and enjoyed the breathtaking views. Today, I spent time on the beach, and tomorrow I plan to join a snorkeling tour. Thinking about my family still brings complex emotions. I can't understand why my mother and Brittany would do such a thing to me. But this isn't a new issue. They have always relied on me too much, and I have been afraid to say no. I talked to Dad yesterday. The dogs are doing well. He said he had talked to Mom and Brittany as well. Both seemed to feel sorry, but I have not yet responded to their messages. I need time. I put down my pen and looked up at the sky. Messages from my mother and sister had arrived right after they landed in Japan. Apologies, explanations, and pleas for my understanding were lined up. However, I wasn't ready to respond yet. During this vacation, I took time to reflect on my life and how I want to change it. And so, I started a blog titled Drawing Boundaries, a journey of self-affirmation. I announced the blog on my social media account because I wanted to share my experiences and inspire others in similar situations. One evening, while watching a beautiful sunset from the hotel balcony, I called my father. Dad. Ah, Candace. How are you? Very well. It's really beautiful here. I saw your photos, he said. I'm following your blog. Really? I was surprised. I hadn't expected him to read my blog. Oh, your photos are professional quality, especially the sunset photos. I smiled. Thank you, Dad. Photography has always been a hobby of mine. I didn't know that, he said with a touch of sadness. I should have known more about you. It's okay, Dad. It's never too late. He continued, somewhat hesitantly. I want to apologize. I should have protected you more. There were times when I should have objected to Diane's ways, but I remained silent. I was surprised, yet felt warmth at his words. It was rare for my father to express his feelings so openly. The next day, an unexpected package arrived at my hotel. It was a high-end camera lens. The card attached had a message from Dad. "Let your passion blossom with love, Dad." I smiled as I held the lens. For the first time, I felt that someone in my family truly understood and supported my interests and passions. Apology messages from my mother and sister arrived daily. However, I decided to keep my distance. I understood that changing long-standing relationship patterns would take time. And for the first time, I felt free to make my own choices. After returning home, I started having regular dinners with my father. He listened to me and asked about my life and dreams. Apology messages from my mother and sister continued, but I maintained my distance. "How are Mom and Brittany?" I asked one day during a meal with him. They came back from Japan. "Diane has changed. She can't push things through as she used to." We held a family meeting to discuss our relationships moving forward. "And I spoke up for the first time," he said with a hint of pride. "I talked about how much she has been using you, how much Brittany has been spoiled, and how irresponsible I have been." I gasped. "Dad." "They were resistant at first, especially Diane," he continued, "but ultimately they had to admit we were wrong. Diane is now reflecting on her actions. She wants to ask for your forgiveness." I looked out the window, unsure of how to respond. Hastily, he continued, "You don't have to respond to her messages. You need time. We know that. I might reconcile with them someday," I said. "But right now, I'm learning to live for myself." Calmly, "That's okay," he concluded. "I'm here for you." I thus began establishing reasonable boundaries in my home. My relationship with my sister and mother changed, and I became closer to him. More time would be required to truly see if they had changed. But one thing was certain: I would never again sacrifice myself to meet the needs of others.